Today we're here at Waterford down in Venice, and what we're looking at is some of the aspects that we have done over the years down here to help with shoreline erosion, nutrients going into the water, and increased buffer zones with native plants in the areas. We've been speaking with Ross Allard this morning, and we want to talk a little bit about some of the projects they're doing. One of the things that they've done to help stabilize the shoreline and recover soil from out of the pond and bring it back up to the bank is to use a product called Geotube. And the Geotube is kind of like making sausage, where you use a hydraulic pump and you pump it back up into a tube that is built along the shoreline. So consequently, one of the things that you have to understand about Geotube is that they eventually cover it with sod or other vegetation to protect it from the sun and protect it from anything else in the pond that may end up hurting it. So consequently, if you don't protect your Geotube and you decide to use that as a product to stabilize your shoreline, you have to understand that native plants in front of it is the very best thing you can do. And right here is an example of what happens when you haven't used native plants effectively. When you look down along the bank here, you can see the Geotube exposed. And what happens is that if you have no cover for this, over time, the sunlight can damage the Geotube, boring catfish can punch into it, turtles could potentially damage it. So the one way to correct that and protect your investment is if after you've done the Geotube, if you go back to using your shoreline plants all the way along the area here. And native plants are some of the best that they can use here. And in this area, Ross Allard has used golden canna, which is one of my favorites. So again, these are just some of the things we wanted to talk about on this, was to talk about shoreline restorations. And once you have spent the money, how do you protect it for the future?
To give you an idea, right, we've tried with this particular grass, we found it's actually too tall and too, you can start to see some of the effects when it falls on over. Actually, a shorter grass would have been far better and actually probably more applicable in here. And that's what we're already doing in some of the other lakes.
Now, where we're located right now is a section of the Waterford area around one of the ponds where they've used Geotube. And as you can see, the Geotube comes down to the water's edge here, and it has basically recovered soil from out of the pond and restored the shoreline. Now, some of the things to point out that are really positive here and some of the things that are a little bit on the negative side are they have kept the shoreline vegetation, which basically provides the protection that I had mentioned earlier along the shoreline here to protect the Geotube. One of the things that they need to consider is recreating the buffer zone along the top bank here to grow the grass a little tall. Because when you think of grass, all the energy in turf grass is in the blade itself. So when you manicure turf grass too low, it ends up having a very, very short root zone, which is not able to protect the shoreline by itself, whether it's covering Geotube or whether it's covering natural soils. So consequently, what I would recommend in this case would be to go ahead and grow the grass a little taller along here so that you have a deeper root zone to help protect that area. And also the vegetation in front of it now protects the major investment that Waterford has done to reestablish the shoreline in this area. And this is an area where originally the outfall, the concrete outfall down here, originally was eroded back probably 10 or 12 feet. Now they have reestablished that, built up around it, and if they keep the plants, it will help keep the shoreline stabilized. Now the other thing too, that they've also recreated habitat for the birds and all the other critters that live here. For example, if you look down here, you'll see clams. Freshwater clams is indicative of a healthy ecosystem. You're going to have fish, you're going to have all the things that the fish prey on living here in the pond. Now this is an example of another type of plant that grows along the shoreline. This is one that is basically called an alligator flag or thalia. And I don't normally recommend this because it gets to be so large. It does a great job of protecting the shoreline, but I really prefer using the shorter stuff that we've shown you earlier because that's what is more visually attractive in most cases. But this, of course, is an option depending on how severe the erosion is and what you're dealing with and what you like the look of.
Hopefully this is going to provide information for people so they can really learn what would actually work, what works the best, learn from other people, and give them a wealth of information to really, find out what we've done. And, I find if you give people all the knowledge, you give them the opportunity to do the right thing, majority of people will do the right thing. There's no two ways about it. But you have to arm them with the right knowledge, and that's just, everybody's trying to decide what really works. Well, we've done it a lot of what should be done and what shouldn't be done, so maybe this is a great way for them to find out. And if I can inspire one person, that would be fantastic. If I can inspire hundreds or thousands of people, that's even better, because then we're going to resolve the problems for this massive breakout of red tide we've got, which is literally the same type of thing we had over a decade ago. So here we are back again. So now with all the new people moving into the areas, let's inform them with the right knowledge, and then we can all help keep our beaches pristine and our water quality great, as opposed to what we're beginning to see already.